Alright, this is John Colo with OKRaw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, and in this episode I'm going to make with you guys one of my favorite plant-based, uncooked for the most part, recipes that I like to eat on a regular basis, right? I've been eating a plant-based raw foods diet now for the last 25 years, and all over those years I've basically kind of, in my opinion, improved based on new science that I learned, things I learned, and so this is my latest iteration of probably one of the healthiest meals you can ever eat on a plant-based diet, and I want you guys to make it more often. And honestly, I wish there was somewhere I could go to buy this exact same meal, the same exact way I make it. I include many different ingredients for many different reasons, some of which I will mention and some of which I will not be able to mention in this video because I want to try to keep this video short because mostly my videos are quite long. Number one. Number two, this is just really just nutrition packed, right? In the olden days, I used to believe that mono meals, which is eating a meal of one thing, is probably one of the best things you could do. And while yes, in many respects, a mono meal could be totally amazing. It's totally nice to give your digestive system a break and only give it one thing to digest, but at the same time, eating mono meals very often of only one item, like going to Banana Island or going somewhere and eating one item for extended period of time, may wreak havoc on your microbiome and may not be the best thing according to some of the latest science that I'm hearing. So previously I would make recipes that were very simple. My first recipe book had basically most recipes had only 6 ingredients or less because I thought that making simple things would give a break to my digestive system and give it a better time. And maybe some of you guys that don't have a good, robust digestive system because you're coming off of processed foods and junk foods and you're not frankly used to eating all these varied plant foods might have a hard time digesting this because this is a lot of different ingredients. But I will tell you guys that, you know, doing what I do, I digest all this stuff amazingly. It tastes amazing, and in my opinion, it's just one of the healthiest things you could eat for various reasons that I will try to mention. And this is my raw food soup. I guess it's 100% raw, 99% of the time, which is what Chris Kendall says, and I like that a lot. I strive to eat raw foods in their most natural state, as minimally processed as possible. That being said, there are a few items that have been heat processed in this recipe. They're far and few in between. There's very few of them, but I include them for very specific reasons that I'll be sharing in this recipe. I guess I have other videos where I make raw food soups. I'll put a couple links down below so you can see how I've changed over time. And the other thing I'll let you guys know is that I don't have any pre-measured recipes, right? It's just a dash of this, a hint of that, as much of the greens as I want to pick that day, whatever else I have laying around in the kitchen. And so you could follow along and do what I do, or better yet, you guys could come up with your own recipes using this as a base or a model, like, oh, John put in that, so I'll put in this instead. And if you don't have one of these or another of these, that's all right. You could substitute different items, right? And if you guys are the kind of person that need a recipe to follow, hey, check the link down below to the GYGbook.com, where I actually have this pepper-based soup in that recipe book. Although it's probably going to look similar to this, it's going to be nothing like it because every time I make the soup is different depending on what's ripe in my garden, what I'm harvesting in my garden, and what I feel like eating at that time. Because another thing that's very important that I've learned is that we should listen to our bodies, and if our bodies are craving a certain kind of food, then it's likely you might want to include that food to pleasure your body just a little bit. Alright, so without further ado, let's get into this recipe. It's going to be 2 parts. First part is basically just assembling what's going to look like a big salad, because frankly it is. It's basically just a bunch of vegetables and mushrooms and some other foods put in a big bowl. That's step 1. I have most of the things already prepped. Some of it I will prep here in front of you. And then the second step is basically I'm going to make the soup base out of fresh juiced bell pepper in the second half of this video using a vacuum blender and other select ingredients of my choosing. Alright, so let's get to assembling the fixings inside the soup. So this is like the base of my soup. Lots of ingredients. I'll describe them one by one, put them in, and then move to the next one. Alright, so the first one is homemade, basically kimchi that I made and fermented. This is literally still fermenting. It's quite bubbly. Super good. It's made out of my own homegrown Napa cabbage. as well as some hot pepper and whatnot. Like to add this because it adds some beneficial probiotics in there that I basically home cultured from wild culture from basically the existing microflora, lactobacillus, in my own personal environment. So that's really cool. Aside from being functional in that respect, it also adds a nice zing and some hot spice to what I'm eating, all right? Next item we got is basically artichoke heart florets. These are actually no oil added. These are a canned product, actually. Well, a bottled product in a jar. They have been heat processed. You know, I used to use the frozen ones from Trader Joe's, which are pretty clean also. But actually, frankly, I like the taste of these better than the ones that are frozen and then thawed out. Next, we got some seaweed. So this is the Sea Tangle seaweed. It may be next to the kelp noodles at the health food store. I do not agree with the kelp noodles. It's a highly processed product. This, on the other hand, is literally seaweed taken out of the sea, packed in salt. So make sure you wash the salt off really well. That's not a health food, but the seaweed in there is. And from my understanding, this is not heat processed. This is fresh seaweed, basically washed and preserved in salt for you guys. So we've already soaked it, and we're just going to go ahead and dump that in the bowl. All right, next. We got another item that has been heat processed. I bought these mushrooms, which are oyster mushrooms and shiitake mushrooms, cooked them for 15 minutes in my pressure cooker, and drained them out, and that's what I got here. I have basically a pound of mushrooms and just dropped them in. You know, mushrooms are a more recent addition to my diet. Although they have been heat processed, I believe them to be highly beneficial, and I'm not looking to get the enzymes from my cooked mushrooms. I'm looking to get other benefits from the mushrooms that are still in there even after the heat processing. Now, it is true you can eat mushrooms raw, like maybe shiitakes, but there are some indigestible fiber, or it's like fiber anyways, known as chitin, which we really can't break down, as well as potential toxins in mushrooms. So I do not encourage the consumption of raw mushrooms at this point in time, although I did used to eat them in small quantities. I like to cook them, and I could eat them even better, and they have a nicer texture, you know, for this specific recipe. All right. Next, we got some raw olives right here, going right in. Those are Kalamata olives. Normally, I'll chop them up a little bit. Next, we got this Megumi natto. So natto, what is natto? Natto is basically 100% fermented soybeans with nothing added except the bacteria called Bacillus subtilis, I believe, and then it's just fermented, so it's heat processed or cooked. Then the soybeans, and then they add the bacteria, and then this is what you get. It's actually quite stringy. Some people like this stuff. Some people hate it. I like this stuff actually. I could eat it straight, maybe with some avocado, but I like to add it to my recipe for a very important reason. This actually is really rich in enzymes because the bacteria makes enzymes. In addition, the other thing that this has that basically no other vegan food has in this high quantities is a vitamin that maybe we could make from vitamin K in our intestines if we're working properly, and if not, we should probably get it. It's actually vitamin K2 that is required for essential bone health and calcium absorption from what I'm aware. So, you know, my goal these days is to make sure I am nutrient replete, that means I'm getting all my nutrients, and I try to get all my nutrients from a plant-based source as much as possible, you know. And if you don't eat the natto, you could take a supplement, or maybe if you're making the K, if you're eating K like in the greens, then maybe your body will make the K2. But why depend on your body to make something when you could easily eat it in an amazing format with other benefits? You know, it also has a nattokinase, which you could also take in a supplement form, and it's basically strong enzymes. I think it's proteolytic enzymes that will actually clean out your arteries. So people with like heart disease take this enzyme and whatnot, from what I hear. But once again, I'd rather have the food. All right. Next, we got arugula. So this is about half a pound of chopped arugula, organic. This is a baby arugula. So, you know, if you guys are arugula wimps, I grow wild arugula in my garden. It's actually quite strong. But this is the baby arugula, so this has barely any bite. I was talking to my friend the other day. He's like, John, you'd be proud of me, man. I'm eating arugula now. I'm like, what, the stuff from the market? Like organic, the baby arugula? He's like, yep. And I'm like, oh man, that stuff's weak. It's not even like really mild arugula. Let's see, next we got some shredded zucchini. So some yellow squash and zucchini squash. This is about 3 of them. I pre-shredded them last night because I wanted to get some of this recipe done without having to do it all in front of you. So we're just going to dump that in, right? And here's the thing, I'm adding a lot of different ingredients in here. This adds lots of different textures to kind of make it fun when I eat. Some textures are crunchy, some are more soft. And the other thing is, this recipe is providing my microbiome, which we are actually more bacteria than human, lots of different kinds of fiber. We think the fiber is like soluble and insoluble fiber, and these are the standard categories that we believe. But there are thousands of types of fiber that have been, discovered and undiscovered yet with all kinds of different names. So we really, from my latest research, we want to eat a variety of these different plant fibers, something that I have been doing now for the 25 years. But now I want to increase the different kinds of fiber even more, all right? We got a couple things that I fresh picked out of my garden that we're not going to add quite yet. And right here we have some organic frozen corn and peas. These have technically been blanched. Frozen vegetables have been blanched before freezing. If you're buying them from the store, of course, if you do it yourself, you don't need to blanch them. And frozen fruits are not blanched, so it's about 2 cups total. 1 cup of the frozen organic corn and frozen organic peas. I get those at Costco. They're pretty inexpensive there. Next, we got some mung bean sprouts. So those mung bean sprouts. You could add other sprouts in. This is what I happen to have today, so we're just putting a whole pound of the mung bean sprouts in there. Next, we got some little puff ball here, some koosh balls, and these are actually different kind of, some onion flowers and leek flowers out of my garden. And in the bottom of this, we have some chopped onions and celery out of my garden. And one of the things you're going to notice about me is that I try to eat as many items as I can out of my garden that's possible. If I got celery to harvest, I'll harvest some of that and put it in there. If I got this, I'll put that and whatnot. All right. Let's see. The next item is these little flower things. Basically, I usually chop them up, but I had an injury. You can see my hands all wrapped up there. I was basically grating up this, which is actually the jicama, which is the grated jicama. We'll just dump right in there right now because we can. And I was grating up the jicama with a grater, and I literally grated my finger. It was not fun. You could see it. I kind of stopped right there because I had some issues. I did not get blood on my food. So I stopped grating, and I had to take a break for a while because I was supposed to make this video a bit earlier in the day. And so because of that, if I'm a little bit slower, it's because I cut my finger. Hurts pretty good. It's bleeding profusely. I put cayenne powder on it. And that's said to, home remedy to stop the bleeding because I had elevated it and put pressure on it for like an hour and a half. Anyways, that's a different topic. So I'm still powering through this video, so I got the food processor out. And in the future, I would only recommend you guys use jicama with like, some kind of food processor, not a grating disc. This stuff is actually quite hard to shred. It made really nice shreds. But the challenge is, man, I got so much into it, cut my finger up, all right? So we're using a Magimix food processor with a julienne blade, right? And I'm going to just run all this stuff through there, all right? So before I run all this stuff through, because I'm going to do it in systematic order, I usually would chop this up with a knife, but because I injured my finger and I'm a right-handed person, that's a little bit difficult. I don't want to try to injure this more, make it bleed more, so we're just going to put everything through the food processor, including, this is all basil, including purple basil out of my garden, some Thai basil, and then we got a whole pitcher full of mixed greens. It's mostly, I think, some longevity spinach out of my garden with some standard spinach and some bloody dock and some water pepper greens. So, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put in the jicama to shred it up the rest of the way, some cucumber, we got orange carrots, and we also got purple carrots. I want to encourage you guys to get purple into your diets. And as you guys can see, I'm using lots of different colors, varieties, flavors of food. All my produce is organic. I think, the jicama is conventional, but everything else is organic, or I grew it. We got red onions, more nutritious than the standard white ones. Onions are a powerful anti-cancer food, as well as my leek flowers that I'm going to be all putting through this food processor right quick right now. And we'll speed this up for you guys to save you guys some time. That made fast work of it. Remember not to stick your fingers in the chute and you won't get cut, alright? I probably should have just used this in the first place. Man, it makes food prep so much easier. And once again, you know, I'm basically making a huge batch, and I'm also going to show you guys actually how to store this at the end of the video under vacuum so you could eat it for the next 5 days. And that's actually usually what I do. So let's take this apart here. And let's see, we got a spatula, so we're going to spatula off all this delicious goodness. I think this is like a 14-cup food processor, so little I just grated up 14 cups of food right here. And this did an amazing job. The Magimix is the best food processor on the market that I've tested to date. Oh look, and we got some greens. Don't forget your greens inside the pusher that didn't quite make it in. Don't want to waste your good greens there. We got a couple things. Alright. Fast work of all this food. Look at these nice shreds of that jicama, nice shreds on the carrot, nice shreds on the cucumber, adding lots of cool textures in my salad. And look at all those nice, delicious greens right out of my garden, picked fresh, all right? Basil, really flavorful. You know, and here's the thing, right? I mean, many people may not know this, but I know for you know, for reals, on onions and on kale, and other cruciferous, so allium or garlic family plants, as well as kale family plants. That would include also things like radishes, radish sprouts. You know, when we cut these things up before eating it, enzymes are released in the process that actually converts some of the nutrients in the plants to make them even more nutritious and like anti-cancer, you know, in the case of the kale and the onions and the garlic family. So you want to pre-cut these things before you eat them and let them hang out a little bit so they're good enzymatic reaction. Of course, that reaction also happens in our mouth if you are eating raw kale or, you know, other cruciferous vegetables or garlic and onions. But I want that to happen in a bowl a little bit. You know, and that's one of the reasons for eating as many different foods raw as possible. We know that on garlic and onions there is an enzymatic activity and reaction which actually makes the food even more nutritious because you cut it and because you let it sit around a little while. You know, whereas other foods may also have this kind of similar benefit or some kind of reaction with enzymes in the bowl or after you cut it to make the food even more nutritious that are not yet discovered. Alright, man, look at this colorful salad. And that's what we got pretty much right now. It's a salad, but it turns into soup once I get the soup made itself. Alright, I'm back, and now I'm ready to make the soup base with many different ingredients. Now, you don't need to use all these, but some are essential. And I like to just add in a hint of this, a hint of that, because I know I'm getting a wider biodiversity of different kinds of foods that contain different nutrients and different fibers into me. And let my body sort out all the nutrients it needs, and the rest goes down the toilet, literally. And, you know, a lot of these ingredients are in there for certain reasons, for flavoring, for texture, for essential fats, you know, for taste, many different reasons. And I guess let's just get right into it. We're going to load up the blender. So basically what we got as a base is we got straight up pepper juice with a little bit of carrot in there, 32 ounces, but we're going to add that last into the blender. Start off with the easiest thing first. We're going to go ahead and put in a few raisins. I like to add raisins. These are organic raisins. You could use dates. I like to use raisins because they're just easy. Dates you got to pit. I like to add in a few raisins just to give it a little hint of sweetness, because, you know, if you guys buy canned soup in the store, it's full of sugar, and, you know, even adding sugar or even honey to me is not optimal. You know, those items don't have the fiber, whereas the raisins have the sweetness, but also the fiber and other nutrients in there. Next, let's go ahead and pick up the mushroom powder. So I did put in some cooked mushrooms, 2 types, but in this mushroom powder there's 14 different types of mushrooms that I like to use. I started off using only this, and then I started actually cooking my mushrooms because this is actually a heat processed powder that's then dried, and then I could add in. So we just add a little bit of that in there too to get some more power of the mushrooms. Next we have some cayenne pepper, some hot pepper that I grew in my garden, and then powder. We put a little bit of that in there, give it a nice hot and spicy flavor. You know, I've learned that if you want it kind of like flavorful without adding salt, because they don't like to add salt, you could add this guy in there. Next, we're going to go ahead and put some raspberry vinegar. This is raw raspberry vinegar. Just it's raw raspberry vinegar, which is raspberries that's been fermented, basically. Really rich, deep, and dark. It's kind of like, you know, apple cider vinegar, but it's the raspberry version. Then we're going to go ahead and add some flax seeds. These are in there to add a little bit of healthy fat. Also add the omega-3s that are so good. Next we got this guy, which is basically, this is dried tomatoes. I add dried tomatoes, and that means if I add dried tomatoes, that takes a little bit of the moisture out and will create a thicker soup. I mean, you know, because like in a traditional recipe that you are cooking your soup, and when you cook up soup and heat things, you lose some of the valuable phytonutrients, some of the antioxidants. I don't want to do that, but yet I want a thicker soup. So to do that, what people normally would do is add extra nuts, but I don't want to eat a whole bunch of extra nuts, so I add basically something like the dried peppers there. You could add more or less. Sometimes I use dried, actually that's dried tomatoes. Sometimes I use dried peppers, excuse me. We have some nutritional yeast here. Add some essential B vitamins. This is non-fortified organic nutritional yeast I get from Germany. Kind of rare. Next, oh, this one's fun. This is basically my home fermented beans. So I've got basically black beans and adzuki beans. I cooked them up, and then I in the pressure cooker, and then I basically fermented them and put them under vacuum. I fermented them with some of my homemade sauerkraut. I blended up like the beans with a whole bunch of sauerkraut and then some additional Dr. Ohhira's probiotics, and then let that ferment in a fermentation jar. And now we have basically fermented beans that are live versus you know, cooked, because they have the enzymatic activity. And once again, this adds more amazing fibers to your life, which I was not getting before, as well as being black, so it's higher in antioxidants as well. And once again, this is another great item to add that I like to use as a condiment. I'm not sitting there eating meals of this, guys. My diet is based around raw fruits and vegetables, you know, with certain added foods for their health benefits. So this allows me to eat beans in the healthiest way that I've determined how traditional cultures used to eat them. They would cook them and then ferment them, such as the natto, such as this. And when you go through a cooking process, yes, that breaks down some toxins, makes it more easy for our body to digest, because many people may get gas and bloating when they're eating beans. But then if you give it to the bacteria first, they're basically pre-digesting it more. That's why they say sauerkraut's so good. Well, the beans get also pre-digested by the lactobacillus that I ferment in there before I even think about eating it. Plus it creates a lot of different enzymes and also secondary metabolites, which are quite beneficial. All right, so we got this, got this, got this, got this, got this, got that. Oh yeah, all right. This little container here is a special container. And this actually has my powdered seaweed. I did add seaweed in there, but this adds some seaweed powder. Different kinds of seaweed grown on the Oregon coast that I like to add. Next, let's see. Oh, we got to add this guy. So this is, you know, and some of these options are optional. You don't need to add these. This is basically a black raspberry powder. Black raspberry powder has been shown in scientific studies to be one of the most beneficial berry powders out there. This will add in the anthocyanins in high levels, because it's basically concentrated berries with the water removed, although I do have some in the purple carrots as well as my purple basil that I grow. We're just going to put some of this in there. So basically, if you guys follow Dr. Furman in a nutritarian diet, this basically covers all the GBOMBS in this recipe. One recipe, all the GBOMBS. You got your greens, got your onions, got your beans, got your berries. I mean, mushrooms, everything's in here, man. The cruciferous vegetables. All right, next. We got the organic taco seasoning. I get this in 1 pound bulk at a time. It's usually like Frontier Herbs, Star West. And you just pile that in there. All right, next we got this guy. This is actually a curry powder blend from Kauai Pharmacy. This adds some turmeric, which is basically anti-inflammatory. Like to add a little bit of that in there. And then what we got is this. This is actually state flour. What this is a CBD cannabis hemp. So normally people would buy this to smoke. I don't smoke anything because it's bad for your lungs, but this is like a nice little bud. And if I eat this raw, you know, sometimes it tastes like oregano, so we're just gonna dump in, you know, 1, 2, 3 buds. 3 buds for you for my soup. That's not why I'm chipper, because this is CBD dominant, very low THC percentage in there, and I'm not heating it. And then let's see, next we got the plant-based energy raw superfoods go raw sprouted watermelon seeds. That adds some nice healthy fats in there as well. Put that in there also. But then even better than the nuts and seeds for your fat, I like to use these guys, which are basically just avocados. So I got the equivalent of basically 2 avocados going right in. And then of course we have a few other items that I'm going to add in. We got these sprouted garlic cloves. So sprouted garlic cloves are healthier than just standard garlic cloves. So when they sprout, you could plant them. But I like to eat them because now they're more enzymatically active. Oh, and then I forgot, we got to put the miso. So this is the low sodium, 60% less sodium than regular miso. You know, the miso, once again, this miso is organic. Well, it's filtered water, cultured rice, organic whole soybeans, and sea salt. So very low sodium compared to the other kinds out there. I have to go to a special Asian store in my area to get this because a health food store sells the high sodium ones. Shame on them. Once again, that adds an umami flavor, which is really nice. Also allows me to get more beans in me, which is really good to expand your diet, because when you eat the beans, you get the second meal or second bean effect, which basically blunts the blood sugar, you know, of fruit or, you know, things that you eat later, whatever they may be. So you know you don't have such an insulin response. So I like that a lot, and I think I went through everything on the table here except this guy. This guy made the other day, stored under vacuum, so you don't have to do this all at once, because sometimes it can get to be a lot. And we'll pull out the vacuum, little small vacuum on that. And then we're just going to pour this in. This is a 64-ounce container here, and we don't want to fill it all the way to the top. It's going to bubble out there a little bit. And if we have extra, that's all right, because we could just mix this in without blending it up, and then hand mix it in. We're going to go ahead and put the top on there, and then we're going to vacuum blend. So, you know, I use all these high antioxidant foods, such as the pepper juice, which is probably one of the most highest concentrated sources of vitamin C you could get, which is very important for your immune system. Also for cell repair and whatnot, and especially with my hurt finger, I need to do that. Super delicious, super good. Also, all the different colors of the peppers, lycopene and beta-carotene, super amazing. And we don't want to oxidize these things. So if you just use a standard Vitamix or a standard blender without a vacuum function, I do not recommend that, because now you're losing up to 1/3 of some of the different polyphenols and different antioxidant vitamins, such as vitamin C and vitamin A, according to scientific published studies. Check the link down below that I made just the last video. Was a $55 vacuum blender. So if you don't, well, you can't buy this one right now because it's not available. But that's the cheapest vacuum blender I found. That's like the best you'll find for $55 anywhere. I think actually they raised the price now to $62. It's on eBay, and when they sell out, they're going to be totally gone. So get one while they last. Link down below. All right, we're going to turn on this vacuum pump. Unlike other vacuum blenders, the Blendtec vacuum blender is really cool, because unlike other vacuum blenders that basically pull a vacuum and then stop, this blender keeps a vacuum on the whole time. So this is the most vacuum pulled of any vacuum blender, and it's also pulling vacuum while you're actually blending, which is super amazing. In the olden days, I really didn't like the Blendtec because of the dull blades, which they consider a benefit and I consider to be a hindrance. But I got them to do a special thing for me, and also when the blender comes out for you guys, we're going to have the only special sharpened blade vacuum blender by Blendtec out there, right? The owner of the company made a promise to me that he will let my people get the sharpened blades because I've seen a difference for what I do, which is basically blending up raw nuts and seeds and other raw foods. Of course, if you just blend up margaritas, you don't need the sharp blade. Alright, so once we got our good vacuum on it, we're going to turn this on, and we're going to start it off at low, and then just crank it up on high, and we're just going to come back at you when we got it all blended. Alright, so we got it all blended, nice and fine. I was really waiting to hear the, we could pull out the vacuum. I was waiting to hear the raisins, because the raisins are kind of the hardest item in there to blend up. And let's just go ahead and take this tap off the stuff on the top of the blender. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take the rest of this juice, and we're just going to go ahead and pour it in at the same time, so they kind of mix up a little bit. So we have a nice rich soup. Maybe I'll pour some of this in there and shake that out so we get it all out of the carafe before I actually use a spatula to get the rest. Alright, last step is basically to mix this soup up so you can see all the liquid in there, and I find that instead of mixing it when it's dry, if you mix it when it's wet, everything doesn't splash around as much, so that's really nice. And basically you could think of this soup much like basically a salad with a really thick dressing. And in this case the dressing is 100% basically pepper juice, which is totally amazing, super rich and packed with nutrition, removing some but not all the fiber out of the peppers. When you juice foods, you keep the soluble fiber, which feeds your beneficial microbiome, but you don't keep the insoluble fiber, which is basically what's in all the other vegetables that make you shoot bullets. Well, maybe not exactly, but that's really the broom. When you think about fiber and you think about broom, you think only of the insoluble fiber, and really it's the soluble fiber we really want to eat, right? That's in all the amazing fruits and vegetables and beans and other foods, right? Anyways, let's go ahead and I'll mix this up off camera. We're going to come back at you and share with you guys how I'm going to make enough to eat tonight and then store the rest for later in the week. As you guys can see, it is all mixed up. This is what it looks like. Generally I like to maybe use a little bit more juice, but it kind of depends on how much fixins I put in there. I like it usually to be a little bit more soupy. It's a little bit not quite as soupy as I'd like, but hey, that's alright. It's all good. Sometimes if I have extra juice, I'll just add it in there to make it even more soupy. The next step is critical. You can't just put this in a jar and seal it up and put it in the fridge and expect it to last. It will ferment on you, because I've had that happen too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back in half-gallon mason jars, and then we're going to vacuum seal it. So in general, I like to eat about 1 quart of this a day, for my lunch meal these days, and that's my big salad for the day in the middle of the day versus at night how I used to eat. Maybe I'll have an updated video on that. Very, very important in my opinion to have your biggest meal of the day, earlier in the day instead of later, and I have seen the benefit from doing that. In addition, I've increased my intermittent fasting time, so now I have basically like a 9 to 10 hour eating window, usually, well, 8 to 10 hours depending on the day, generally. So we're just kind of like loading this up with all the delicious rich goodness. Alright, so we got it loaded up. You don't want to load it up to the top. You want to leave a little bit of space, because when you pull a vacuum on it, it will expand this mixture. And so what we're going to do is we got these special lids that you can get on Amazon. I will not put the link to them because the guy that makes these says he does not want additional business. So you're going to have to find them yourself if you want them. But they do work pretty good, although they lose vacuum sometimes. And then basically you just suck, and you guys can see this is actually rising up. And it's almost going to get pulled out, and you can really get a strong vacuum. I have used other lids before, like the standard lids that come with the mason jars, and that's one way to do it, which you could still use. But I find this even puts a better vacuum, and the more vacuum you could pull, the more air you could pull. That means the less oxidative damage that will happen. That means the less, bacteria and things will be growing in there, because they can't live without oxygen unless it's the bacteria that's going to actually ferment this. So we pulled a nice, really strong vacuum on there. And I'm going to put this in the fridge. At my fridge, it's about 36 degrees. You want to keep it at 34 to 36 degrees. Optimally, the colder temperature, the longer it's going to store. Easily, you can store this for up to 5 days. I wouldn't really go any longer than that. Generally, I make enough for about a week or 5 days total. I eat one day and then I have 4 additional days to eat. And then, you know, to eat at night, I have this Anchor Hawking measuring glass. It's 4 cups. And I know that, you know, I get full pretty much when I have this all the way up to the 4-cup line. And that's just how much I need to eat. You may need to eat more. You may need to eat less. Sometimes if I'm really hungry, then I'll even put on an extra cup. And I have been known to eat that too. But generally, it's never less than 4 cups. And this is a lot of food, guys, because literally it's just concentrated food. There's a mushroom on top. The other thing I do is I'll put an extra scoop or 2 on top because guess what? My dog loves this recipe so much, okay? I guess I got a few more. I got another one to pack up, but we're going to do that off camera because I really wanted to just get this video out despite hurting my finger today. I wanted to share with you guys the healthiest, plant-based, mostly uncooked meal you could have that has the widest variety of diversity that tastes amazing. Now here's the thing, you guys don't have to put in all the ingredients I did. You know, I didn't always use all these crazy ingredients, but I wanted to show you guys like almost the maximum amount of ingredients I would use to give me the most biodiversity. You can make it as simple or as complex as you want. You don't need to use all my specific ingredients. You could custom tailor to based around what you have, what you think is healthy, what you think is not healthy. You think seaweed, man, that's polluted, John. Freaking leave it out. I don't really care, man. I'm showing you guys what I do. So you guys could try something like this. If you guys don't know how to eat, if you guys have no idea how to put together a healthy meal, I mean, this is one of the healthiest things I know how to put together at this point in time, and hopefully in the future I even adjust and change, even become better. If you have any suggestions for me on how I can make this healthier, hey, put links and comments down below. I'll take a look. I'm not about to add any kind of animal foods or anything to this anytime soon. You know, I don't eat those things. I do not think those are optimally healthy. Although, if you guys made a big salad like this and cut up some animal foods or put some in there because you think you need it, more power to you. Because here's the thing, I don't care if you go 100% plant-based or not. I really want you guys to eat a wide diversity of plant foods. And if you eat meat and other animal foods, eat them as small portions and condiments. And, you know, if you do that, I still think you can have quite a healthy diet. But the problem is most people eat way too much meat and meat of very poor quality. And, of course, the other thing is I want you guys to be connected with your food. Some of this food that I have in my recipe tonight, I was out harvesting in my garden. I'm intimately connected with it. I grew it myself with my own 2 hands. You know, if you guys choose to eat meat, I would encourage you guys to raise your own animals and kill them so that you can eat them. So you are familiar with the process. You know what they're eating. You know how they're treated. And then you go through the process of killing them so that you can eat them. I personally could not do that and do not believe most people would be able to kill an animal in order to eat it when we have plants that are quite nutritious and delicious. And I've been thriving on plants now for the last 25 years. And I'm confident if you dial it in, you could do it right too. There's a lots of gimmicky plant-based diets out there, so I want you guys to use some kind of proven system. If you guys are looking for one, I would recommend Dr. Joel Fuhrman and his nutritarian style diet and eating. I think that is one of the best out there from what I've seen, and I've modeled some of what he does in my raw recipes at this time. If you guys enjoyed this episode, want more like this, hey, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. Also, please be sure to share this with other people that are on a plant-based raw food diet or any diet so that they can see how to eat even healthier by including a wide diversity of foods and a wide variety of actually functional foods that can make a difference in your life so that you're not one of the people that basically jump ship and are no longer raw or plant-based or vegan because you're just eating bananas and dates and romaine lettuce all day. Although that can work for some people, and if it works for you, hey, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, you know, be open and aware because our bodies are constantly evolving and changing. And at a certain point in your life, that may work for you, but at another point, it may not work. And there will be repercussions for whatever you choose to eat. And this is how I've learned how to eat after 25 years now. So you guys got literally the download in just a short video because I've gone through lots of trials and tribulations to learn everything that I have to formulate this and actually make something that tastes good, that is quite nutritious. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss out on my new upcoming episodes that are coming out every 5 to 7 days. You never know where or what you'll be learning on my channel. Make sure to click the little bell so you get notified as many videos come out. Finally, be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge, over 500 episodes at this time on this YouTube channel, dedicated to teach you guys all about how to eat the healthiest fruit and vegetable based diet on the entire planet, so that you could be healthy as possible. So with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time. Until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.